Hi everyone, it's Ann at Martin House Flowers. With spring only 7 weeks away, I couldn't help but reflect back on the past 3 years, and I wanted to share with you just some highlights of the past 3 years as it helps me appreciate everything that my husband Greg and I accomplished in the garden from the time we moved in fall of 21 into our full-fledged start of spring planting in 2022. Greg and I are both huge fans of nature, and for the backyard, we decided that instead of fencing, we wanted to plant a row of evergreens. We went and handpicked our evergreens at a local nursery, and we planted everything from Black Hills spruce to Serbian spruces, a lilac tree, and of course my love of hydrangeas, since I planted, over 25 hydrangeas for foundation plantings. In spring of 2023, the tulips came up so beautifully. I had planted them in the previous fall. And the peonies that I had planted the previous year were doing so well, blooming so beautifully and so fragrant. This was the year that I started my love affair with roses. Roses brought back so many memories of my mom's garden when I was a little girl. Greg and the kids decided it was time for us to start growing vegetables in the garden. So we grew lettuce, tomatoes, herbs, but I still couldn't stop planting more flowers. I planted some cosmos from seed and more delphiniums, and my hydrangeas were just blooming in their second year. As I looked out into the garden where I saw space, all I could think about was planting more roses. I had gotten a taste of it that spring and just set my sights for more roses. Meanwhile, Greg built me some beautiful obelisks for the kitchen garden. We grew our tomatoes on the trellis, and on Mother's Day, I got an arbor, which of course I thought I need some climbing roses. We did finish off the year with 2 more evergreens in the backyard. Meanwhile, over the winter, I had been planning my big reveal. I wanted to build a greenhouse, and life had changed so drastically, I had decided to retire at the end of February. And what better way to celebrate my retirement but to help build a greenhouse, plant cut flowers as I'd always dreamed of. In April, BC Greenhouse delivered our greenhouse. It came all the way from Surrey, British Columbia. And in May, Greg started putting together the greenhouse. It was quite a lengthy process as he was still working full-time and is still working full-time, so he only had weekends to work on the greenhouse. And subsequently, I had also started growing seeds indoors under grow lights in late February, early March. So we were on schedule to plant my cut flowers that spring and summer. So at the same time that Greg was building the greenhouse, he was also working on raised garden beds. I cannot believe that he took on those 2 large projects in the same season. The garden continued to flourish. My hydrangeas started growing larger and larger every season. The blooms were just beautiful. This is my twist and shout big leaf hydrangea. And the hostas that were planted in the spring of 2022 were starting to take on some size. There are a few of the endless summer hydrangeas and ajuga bugleweed. This is the east side of my property. The east side of our property is also the only part shade location in all of our yard. So we're able to grow some heuchera coral bells as well as hostas. So my seedlings of snapdragons and stalk were ready to be planted. Luckily, Greg had 2 of the raised beds completed, and I quickly got my little seedlings of snapdragons and stalk into the raised beds. These were planted in early May. Snapdragons did so well and continued to cut and come again all through the summer. The stalks, on the other hand, were a little bit late, and as a result, I got very few blooms out of the stalk, and I don't think my area is quite suited for the cool-loving stalk flowers. In June of 2024, my first rose to bloom was Distant Drums. This is an heirloom rose and is such a unique rose due to the multi-layers of color. I also needed to replace my big leaf hydrangeas from Proven Winners, and these Skyview big leaf hydrangeas promise to be very hardy for this area. I had new irises and my lavender were starting to bloom, and my peonies, of course, from the 2022 were in their second year and were just at their prime. Summer of 2024 arrived with quite a few windstorms. Our front birch tree is constantly taking a beating during these windstorms that we are famous for in northern Illinois. Everything was in bloom though. My roses in their second year, that's Earth Angel and Tchaikovsky, and my lavender, of course, were all loving the south-facing sun. These roses are in their second year, and my climbing rose, Eden, and New Dawn on the other side of the arbor finally bloomed. I was so happy to see them blooming. New Dawn is way more prolific, though, than Eden. I don't recall Eden getting a second flush. New Dawn, on the other hand, continued to have 3 or 4 flushes of blooms all throughout the summer. And here are my newly planted roses in my no-dig bed. This no-dig bed was started the previous fall, and in May and June of 2024, I started planting several David Austin roses as well as some heirloom roses. I was so excited to see some new buds and new foliage coming through only a couple weeks after they had been planted in the ground. I have to say the most impressive of the roses in their first season were David Austin, Queen of Sweden. I have 2 of them, and hopefully I can drop in some photos of their blooms. And of course the rabbits decided they also wanted to chomp down on a few new roses. On the west side of my garden is my panicle hydrangea garden. I have quickfire fabs that were planted on the far end of our property, and the previous seasons we had planted bobo hydrangeas and little lime hydrangeas. These were on their second year, whereas the quickfire fab were just planted in fall of 2023. These daylilies were from the builder package and had been moved around the property quite a bit. Here is an example of the windstorm where it had knocked down Greg's beautiful obelisks. He's had to repair those, unfortunately, a couple times. Meanwhile, the raised beds for the cut flower garden were still underway into the month of June. And Greg just continued to build the greenhouse as well as the raised beds based on the schedule of my seedlings. Next year, I'm going to have to figure out some solution for this netting that I need for keeping my snapdragons upright. As you can tell here, they had been taking some pressure right in the center of both the bed of stock as well as the snapdragons throughout the summer, where the bunnies were jumping in and actually living inside the beds. Here are a few of my sweet peas that were growing in the raised bed next to my tomatoes. They didn't do as well in this area, I think because there was too much sun, but on the patio just a few feet away they were flourishing. They bloomed so profusely through the month of May into June. Absolutely gorgeous and fragrant. By June, the last of my roses planned for the new rose bed had arrived. Soon I thought maybe I had planned too many in that bed. We'll see next spring how tight they are, but I really wanted to have a continuous full bed of roses. And here it is, my beautiful BC greenhouse completed. The raised beds were also completed by the end of June, and Greg put in a beautiful gravel pathway. I received some beautiful cut flowers full of zinnias, snapdragons, bachelor's buttons, cosmos, salvia, amaranth, celosia, and many more. I'm so looking forward to next spring, where I will be even more experienced at growing cut flowers. I hope that you continue to join me as I continue my cut flower journey. I am so thrilled with what we've accomplished in the last 3 years, and I'm looking forward to year 4 at Martin House Flowers. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you again for following along on our journey, and I look forward to creating many more beautiful videos of our garden. Thank you so much for being with us today. and we're all looking forward to spring, and I can't wait for those days ahead where we will see all of our tulips, our daffodils, our hyacinths, and all the beautiful roses that are going to be coming up in only a few weeks. Thank you again for being here.